So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our final book brunch of the year here at Princeton Public Library on this bright and beautiful December morning. My name is Janie Herman, the manager of public programming, and it's such a pleasure to gather with you for what promises to be a delightful and laughter-filled event. As always, we'd like to begin by extending our warmest thanks to our sponsor, the Princeton Federal Credit Union, for their generous and continued support of this book brunch series. Their support makes it possible to bring authors, artists, and readers together for conversations that spark creativity, curiosity, and community, as well as enjoying some pastries. We're also happy to welcome Labyrinth Books, who are here this morning with copies of today's featured title, To Think We Started, as a book club, along with other works by both our guests. Following the conversations, Tom and Patrick will be signing books, so please be sure to stop by the Labyrinth table to pick up a copy or a few. After all, these make excellent gifts as we head into the holiday season. Before we begin, just two quick reminders. Our room is equipped with a hearing loop for anyone using T-Quill-enabled devices, and we also have over there T-Quill headsets available if you need assisted listening. And as a courtesy to our speakers and your fellow attendees, please take a moment to silence your cell phones if you haven't already. Now, on to our introductions. Tom Toro is an acclaimed cartoonist and writer whose works has appeared in The New Yorker more than 200 times, as well as in the New York Times, the Paris Review, The Believer, and other major publications. Known for his sharp wit, tender observations, and ability to capture big ideas in deceptively simple lines, Tom is widely admired for the warmth and intelligence that infuses his art. His new book, To Think We Started as a Book Club, which, by the way, that cover just cracks me up every time, continues his signature blend of humor and heart, taking readers behind the scenes of creative life, family life, and everything in between. Tom also writes fiction, memoir, and children's stories, and he has become one of the most beloved contemporary voices in cartooning for his ability to pair humor with humanity. Joining Tom in conversation today is none other than Patrick McDonnell, who's beloved in our community and known so well by many in Princeton. He is the award-winning creator of the internationally syndicated comic strip Mutts. Patrick's work has earned him the National Cartoonist Society's highest honors, a devoted global readership, and praise for his gentle spirit, environmental themes, and profound compassion for animals. In addition to Mutts, Patrick is the author and illustrator of many acclaimed picture books, including collaborations with Eckhart Tolle and the Dalai Lama. And he's long been an advocate for animal welfare and kindness as an everyday practice. His thoughtful, joyful storytelling makes him an ideal conversation partner for today's program. Together, Tom and Patrick will discuss Tom's new book, the creative process behind their work, the evolving landscape of cartooning, and how humor, especially in illustrated form, can deepen connection and understanding. We are truly fortunate to have both these celebrated artists, cartoonists with us this morning to close out our book brunch season. Once again, deepest thanks to the Princeton Federal Credit Union and the Labyrinth Books for being here today. And now please join me in welcoming Tom Toro to the podium. Thank you. I'm a little bit shorter than Tom, so we're going to raise this up for him. If you need it taller, it goes up.
Oh, it goes up and down. Wow, okay.
We're fancy.
Princeton Library. This is your tax dollars at work right here. Look at this. Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see such a full room on Sunday morning. Where would you rather be? This is really an honor for me. I've long admired Patrick McDonnell's work. I love him as an artist and as a fellow creator in this space. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I hope you are too. And yeah, this is my debut cartoon collection, which is kind of funny to say because I've been working for the magazine for about 15 years. It's not comprehensive, but it's sort of the greatest hits curated thematically. It's getting rarer for cartoonists to put out cartoon collections because for my generation, our stuff is just sort of ubiquitous online. You can go on my social media and see more of it. There's more available for free online. So I really, thank you to Andrews McMeel for taking the risk and starting to put out true cartoon collections for younger artists. So I'm really, really encouraged that this book is out in the world, making the rounds, and thank you so much for coming. So I tricked some celebrities into giving me blurbs. One of my favorite ones was from Hannah Gatsby. She says, "I only wish household magnets were stronger so I could put this whole book on my fridge." Raise your hand if you have a New York cartoon on your fridge as we speak this very moment. I know, okay, yes, there you go, there's a few. Some people's fridges are structurally held together by New Yorker cartoons and magnets. So let's see, is this the right clicker? This is the right clicker, yes. Yeah, so like I said, we were trying to, one of the things I did with my publisher was to try to figure out how to organize the cartoon collection, and we realized that sort of broad themes was the best way because the cartoons themselves speak to a lot of different topics, and we just wanted there to be a general guide through the collection. So the first book is the Book of Life. There's always one annoying piece left over. To the naked eye, it might seem as though birds' nests are random jumbles of twigs, but they're actually assembled like IKEA bookshelves, you know? And of course, there's one annoying piece always left over. Angels making snow humans. Just absolutely face planting. Sometimes to come up with a cartoon idea, you just flip something on its head. You just have to turn something upside down, you know? It's sort of a little trick of cartooning, just look at it upside down. We're only alive for one day and you had to schedule dinner with the Hamiltons. I love cartoons that kind of imply a larger story, right? Like, so when you think back, to think that what happened over the course of the preceding 23 hours where they were able to develop a grudge against the Hamiltons in that shortest span of time. And funnily enough, a little insider intel on the New Yorker, very rarely do they ever ask you to redraw any of your cartoons. There's sort of surprisingly little editorial give and take with the cartoons. In some instances, though, they do ask you to touch things up. This was one instance where my original drawing, the mayflies, didn't look enough like mayflies. So they sent me a lot of reference images for what mayflies actually look like. So your cartoons do get fact-checked. The Book of Love, there's Cupid studying up. The first time is always a little awkward. It's like the actual first time, Adam and Eve. How does the geometry of this work? We're figuring this out. We're gonna move quickly past the fact that I accidentally drew 2 left feet on Adam. I enjoy role-playing, but do we really need the dramaturg? I did an event at Joe's Pub, and this one killed at Joe's Pub in New York, in the Public Theater. My husband will be home at any moment. Quick, take the accordion. Getting the right tone is important in New Yorker cartoons. Like, this is an inherently perilous situation, but they're actually seizing the opportunity to get rid of this instrument that annoys them that their spouse plays, right? So the danger is a little bit more diffused. No one is going to get hurt in this cartoon. So getting the tone correct is a lot of the trick. The Book of Family. Lego is the only thing keeping this household together. This was very much a pandemic cartoon that I did, where emotionally and structurally Legos were holding the entire household together. When the New Yorker okays a cartoon from you, your first response is joy, and then sometimes your second response is, gosh, now I actually have to draw the thing. And this was one of those instances where, like, it was actually really important, I felt, that I go into the detail of all the Lego studs to make it actually feel like it's architecturally coherent. I wasn't murdered, Hamlet. I just came back to encourage you to go to medical school. There are different ways of being haunted by your family, right? Find a patch of sunlight, my boy. Find a patch of sunlight and bask in it. This is more of a tender one. You know, it's a little more gentle. The life advice we wish we'd all gotten from our fathers, our parents, as we embark into the world. Apparently, to find a patch of sunlight, you need a steamer trunk. The Book of Work. You invented a time machine to come back and hit reply instead of reply all. And again, like the larger context of the story, right? Like to think of the sort of unprecedented technological leaps this person had to go through just to go back and avoid that embarrassing day at work. You know, it's the little humiliations that stick with us through life that we remember, right? Based on the feedback from advisors whom I haven't beheaded, all of my ideas are great. It's good to be the king. Behold, as I guide our conversation to my narrow area of expertise. You are all in this cartoon with me right now. That's the strategy that goes on in our minds subconsciously during dinner parties, right? How do I guide this around to what I want to talk about? The Book of Beasts, as Patrick can attest to, one of the true joys of cartooning is infusing animals with intelligence, imagining the life of animals, imbuing them with intelligence, which we know that they possess, but like actually articulating that, but still giving them like human foibles that are also paired with their animal instincts. We need to stop sharing one set of clothes. I almost didn't submit this one because I felt sure that someone else would have done the cartoon already, but to my surprise, no one had quite done that yet. So I like imagining Winnie and Smokey like hibernating in the same cave and sharing a closet. It's that time of year when guys randomly explode. That's a darker one. No one is hurt yet. The hunter might miss, right? Just thinking about hunting season like from a duck's perspective. It's like, guys just blow up all of a sudden. We don't know why. Don't let anyone see how much we enjoy knitting. So this one I actually expanded into a children's book. This was my latest children's book that just came out last May called Crocodiles Need Friends Too. I felt like there was potential in this idea that like a young crocodile would have all these hidden talents that it was unable to share with the other animals because they would all flee in fear. So sometimes cartoon ideas actually do contain the seed of a larger story. The Book of Tech. Auto reply. I am dead and will have limited access to email. This one will probably be my ultimate away message when the time comes. Sweet mother of God, so that's how you buckle a seatbelt. I loved imagining the one person for whom that demonstration is instructive, right? How have they been buckling this entire time? Because they don't actually teach you how to buckle a seatbelt when you're taking driver's ed, right? It's like assumed. When it comes to blowing leaves around uselessly and creating an insane amount of noise, this model can't be beat. I live in Portland, Oregon, and there's a group in Portland, Oregon called Quiet Clean PDX that is advocating for like the stopping the use of gas-powered leaf blowers, and they're using this cartoon as part of their legislative advocacy. The Book of Weird. Obviously cartoons, there are some that are unclassifiable that kind of belong to no particular genre or realm, but those are often the most satisfying to do because they're just sort of, non sequiturs. Anything. That reminds me of a scene from The Big Lebowski. This is sort of a love letter to my dad. No matter what we're talking about, he can always bring the conversation around to The Big Lebowski. He's never said I love you, but he can quote The Big Lebowski front to back. I also, just like in terms of like cartoon art, I struggled with a little while about how do you depict that a character could be saying anything. Like I tried a speech bubble with a lot of scribbled text as if they were saying a bunch of things or any given number of things. Ultimately, that felt a little bit confusing. And the Occam's razor solution is just the word anything bracketed in parentheses. Sometimes the simplest solution is really the way to go. I'm poison oak. I'm pretty sure I'm poison oak. Or is that poison oak? It's like our own uncertainty is the plant's existential crisis. That there's one bow-legged cowboy. So this was actually the first cartoon that I sold to the New Yorker back in 2010. And somewhat masochistically, I went back at that moment and counted how many it had been up until the point when I sold this one. And this was the 610th cartoon that I had submitted that they ended up buying. That was over the course of about 2.5 years. And not all the 609 that preceded this one are undiscovered masterpieces. Like I was very much learning on the fly and developing my skills as I went, trying to hone in my comedic voice and how that could pair with my drawings. And I was studying the New Yorker front to back. I was reading every anthology I could get my hands on, trying to like decode what makes a New Yorker cartoon, what are the elements of cartooning, why are they so special and good. And so given that this is also the 100th anniversary of the New Yorker magazine this year, I wanted to sort of take a moment and go back through some of the cartoons that gave me inspiration as I was developing, learning on the fly, and also just as sort of speed dating, appreciation of all the cartoons that have really been influential over the years. This is the first cover sketch by Ray Irvin of the New Yorker magazine back in 1925, bringing the character of Eustace Tilley to life, who would become the mascot of the New Yorker magazine. Here's an early cartoon of the New Yorker. It's broccoli, dear. I say it's spinach, and I say the hell with it. So it's like cartoons in the early 20s were actually more dialogue scenes. Like there were multiple characters speaking. Some would actually have like identified character names in the captions to the cartoons. They hadn't quite refined it to the single line caption, the elegant New Yorker style that would eventually develop in the magazine. And I love this one too because we identify with the child, right? Like we identify with the upstart, punching up against authority, up against power. And for the magazine in the 1920s, during the Jazz Age, trying to elbow its way into the cultural scene at the time, it was very important for the magazine to sort of be aligned with the sort of upstart generation. Here's a great one that I love by Richard Decker. Captionless. This person has just ransacked the vault of a company, but they're pausing on their way out to adjust their financial outlook. So it's like the conscientious crook, right? It's almost like my accordion cartoon from earlier. There's a scene, there's a crime being committed, but the criminal actually has a heart of gold. Like they're sort of a good person at the end of the day, right? The danger is diffused. And here's a very famous cartoon by Peter Arno. Well, back to the old drawing board. This actually like made that phrase part of the American lexicon. This was where back to the old drawing board comes from. And this would have been a full page on the New Yorker magazine. They don't really give you that kind of real estate anymore. But this one is so beautiful. There's a very clear, dramatic moment, obviously, like the plane has crashed. No one has been hurt. Notice in the background, the pilot has parachuted to safety. So everyone is safe in this cartoon. And the person who we identify with, the engineer stepping towards us as everyone else rushes toward the crash, is actually rubbing his hands in anticipation of building a better airplane, right? There's like a future forward, there's a forward-lookingness to it. There's an optimism to it. There's this like disaster taking place, but it's actually something that this person is seizing on as a chance to invent a better airplane. So that tone is so perfect. And I also wanted to show you, when I broke in, the editor who I broke in under, Bob Mankoff, had a great metaphor for where is the sort of line of transgression in cartoons, right? All humor is transgressive by nature. You're speaking things that shouldn't otherwise be spoken. You're pointing things out that you would choose rather to ignore. There's an iconoclasm to humor, but where's the tone? How do you find the right tone for it? And he used the metaphor of a zoo. So this is a good zoo, this is a bad zoo, but this is a worse zoo, right? You don't want the humor to be too in your face. Like where are the cage bars, in the degree of transgression for your sense of humor? And no one did that better than Charles Addams, who I greatly admire as a cartoonist. I love, we are all annoyed by the chores that our spouse imposes on us, right? And this is just a very heightened version of that, right? And just structurally, like the gunfire draws our attention downward toward the person sweeping the still warm shell casings off the carpet. And just imagine this cartoon flipped. Like imagine if we started with the sweeping and ended with the gunfight. It would be slightly less funny, right? We want to start with the gunfight and end with the identifiable domestic task, right? That's our point of identification. That's the truth in the cartoon to us. Here's a great one by Charles Addams as well. They use this one in psychology exams to see if you can describe like what is actually happening here. I love this one because it can only be a cartoon. Like it couldn't work in a movie really. You couldn't imagine it on stage. As a passage of literature, it might not make sense. It's only a cartoon. It uses and breaks cartoon physics perfectly. George, drop the keys. George is way up here, right? I love that there's just the shadow cast, like the degree of danger is perfect. We're not experiencing the horror of George's situation. We're identifying with the person who at the end of the day needs to get home and continue with their lives. And you also understand the tone of their marriage perfectly in this moment, right? So Charles Addams really widened the aperture in New Yorker cartoons of just stuff that was a little bit more macabre, but just really, really out and out funny, almost like Sunday morning cartoon kind of funny. And without his expanding that aperture, I probably wouldn't have been able to publish my own cartoon in that same vein. Well, I guess we can leave the sign as is. There's just one sun remaining, right? At the end of the day, it's just a frugal, logical decision. Did I mention that my dad has never said I love you? And there's also just the sheer beauty of Charles Addams' cartoons. I mean, this would have been, to the degree of artistry that goes into this, just for a cartoon that someone glances at for 3 seconds, is really extraordinary. We can imagine the Addams family has, let's imagine that's hot cider that they're going to pour on the carolers. So I also tried to mimic that level of artistry, not even approaching it in any way, of course, but I just loved pouring that amount of effort into the cartoons. We can't dispense with the formalities, George. There'd be nothing left. So that's one side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum is someone like Saul Steinberg, who does more conceptual cartoons, right? This is just a depiction of what it's like to be alive at this moment in time. Year, month, day, hour, minute, second. now, like we're all poised, balanced on this impossible moment of now with all the time that is accumulated beneath us. So when you receive a contract from the New Yorker, nowhere in the contract does the word cartoon appear. They use the phrase idea drawing. And I think partially that is to have permission to publish things like this that are not actual jokes, but which are just expressions of an idea. There's another one by Saul Steinberg, The March to Lunch. I love how it's in 5-minute increments. Another one by Saul Steinberg, who was a gallery artist as well as a cartoonist. This is almost like the tree one with the Charles Addams, right? It kind of takes you a moment to figure out the physics of this cartoon. Someone is just really efficiently, there's a very efficient gallery curator. And in that same vein, here's something of mine that's more along the conceptual line, God's reading light. What happens when the story's done? How many pages were left in the book was an important decision here. There's still some left. We don't have to worry quite yet. So when I was studying the cartoons trying to break into the magazine, I was listening to an interview one time with Terry Gross interviewing Jon Stewart. And this was during the sort of heyday of The Daily Show during Obama's first presidential run. And she kept trying to get him to admit that he was a journalist. And he finally just said, no, I refuse to accept that label. I'm not a journalist, I'm a comedian. All the fact-checking that I do for the show, all the research that I do for the show is not for journalistic purposes, it's for comedic purposes. Because jokes don't work unless they're true. And that kind of lit up, like as I was studying, I was supposed to show this earlier, trying to come up with ideas. So jokes don't work unless they're true. It's not only the factual truth, but the psychological truth, right? Like that Charles Addams cartoon of the sweeping up of the hot shell casings that are on the carpet. We're annoyed with chores. Like, what is the psychological truth in the cartoon? So I really tried to follow that in my own brainstorming sessions. We're back to the first cartoon that I published in 2010. The truth in this one is that my father is incredibly bow-legged. So I literally saw him walk through a door one day and saw his legs in silhouette and thought, maybe there's an idea in there somewhere. So just look around. And the reason why that occurred to me is because I was part of the boomerang generation that moved back home during the Great Recession. And when I was submitting to the New Yorker and finally broke into the New Yorker, I was still living at home in my parents' house, which they still live in, that I grew up in. So I was sort of undergoing like this second adolescence, I kind of think of it. And when the cartoon first got published, it was in this edition of the magazine with a cover by Dan Clowes of a young man hanging his PhD diploma on his childhood bedroom after he has moved back home. So this was kind of freaky that it was published in this particular one. Since then, I've had the honor of doing my own cover for the New Yorker. I did the Thanksgiving one last year. So when you're working on a cover, it's a different department than the cartoons, and there's much more of sort of a give and take. Françoise Mouly is the cover editor. Her partner is Art Spiegelman, who did the Mouse graphic memoirs. So kind of like a comics cartoon power couple. But she has your full attention when you're developing a cover with them. So I kind of wanted to go through the process with you. It's a little bit fascinating. This is the first, when the idea first came to me, this is the jotting that I made. My initial sketches are very rough. I just try and get down the idea very quickly. This is the pitch that I sent into them. I imagined it more like a meta cartoon, like the turkey is hiding from the reader, right? And trying to disguise itself from the reader. She got back and said that she liked the concept. Could we make it more of a scene? So I sketched up this farmyard scene. We thought maybe the tiger was out of the zoo cage in this one with the axe. Like we don't want to anticipate the turkey's, disguises inevitably failing and what's going to happen to them after that. So we decided to make the farmer different. And then we said, okay, well, what if it's just sort of a passing glance? What if the farmer is sort of more of an avatar for the reader passing by like a newsstand, right? And this was the composition that we settled on, worked it up, and it became the cover. Now, I would like to share probably my most well-known cartoon. Yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. This cartoon has been sort of embraced by the climate change movement. It's become, I guess, the highest compliment for a modern artist is it's a meme. So it comes back every climate week, all the COP summits, it resurfaces on Earth Day, it always resurfaces. People have changed that last sentence to suit whatever current crisis we're going through. So I find it very flattering. I've sort of lost control of the cartoon at this point. It's not really mine, it belongs to the culture. Most recently, a friend was visiting Highgate Cemetery in London last summer, and they sent me this picture. Someone had cut out the cartoon and laid it on the grave of Karl Marx, which I found very flattering. I feel like maybe a public library is a safe space to admit that I really admire Karl Marx as a political philosopher. So we've been through the cartoon. We've just sort of speed dated some great cartoons from the past. I've given you sort of an overview of my own work, some tips of the trade. Now I wanted to show you, just for fun, a recent batch of cartoons that I submitted to the New Yorker in pitch format. One of them sold, and we'll see if we can decide which one it is. See if you can guess which one it is. I'm totally in favor of meritocracy. That's why I named my son and the rightful heir to the throne, Merit. Indiana Dow Jones. Fish, cheese, fear. Let's skip that monger. The Lord works in mysterious ways, but down here I like to keep things pretty straightforward. Didn't check the weather app, wore open-toed shoes. And this is my man cave. Too soon? Historically, like when did people start? Was it like a month after? Was it a year out? Like when did crucifixes start to be worn? So one of those sold. We'll go back through them briefly. There's Merit, Dow Jones, Monger, Mysterious Ways, Weather App, Man Cave, Too Soon. And funnily enough, when you sell a cartoon to the New Yorker, it comes by email. They send you an email nowadays letting you know you've sold one. And this is always the subject line. Okay. The editor just says, okay. It's very humbling, as you know, like you've achieved the impossible, and they're just sort of like, okay, fine, send us the finish. I think that is a residue of when they used to take submissions in person. You'd have to go back to the offices and pick up your batch and see if you got one. And on the back of the drawing, there'd be a little OK written by the editor. Anyway, so keep in mind which one you think is your favorite. This is the one that sold. The Lord works in mysterious ways, but down here I like to keep things pretty straightforward. You can make a case for each one of them, right? Like you never know. Whenever I get an okay, I always like try to go back to my batch before I open the attachment to see which one they chose, and I'm almost never able to guess which one it is. You just never know. So it really behooves you as a cartoonist to like throw everything at the board, don't self-center, send in a lot of stuff. I will also, like the Too Soon one, I will also send stuff to the editor that I know never in a million years would the New Yorker ever publish this one, but I think it's funny, and I think the editor will probably think it's funny, just to remind them that you're a human being and not like a PDF generating bot that's like sending them stuff every week. So yep, so that's the overview of my book. At this point, I would like to invite Patrick to join me up here, and we will grill each other on the art and the craft, and we'll take questions after. That's a great question. Here's my answer to an easier one you didn't ask. Is that for the audience?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. And boy, congratulations. That was a wonderful, wonderful talk.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yeah. And I have to say, I've known of Tom's work, his brilliant work, for a long time, but I've just got to meet Tom this morning. But I do have a Tom Toro story. And my Tom Toro
I don't know where this is going.
my Tom Toro story is that I was at a party in New York City. I had an apartment in New York City. And I say a party, but it was maybe 6 people. And one of the people at this party was Jason Chatfield. And Jason Chatfield is a fellow cartoonist, really good cartoonist. And during the party, he mentioned that, I have to tell you that next week I'm going to interview Tom Toro for his new book. We said, oh, that's great. And the other person at the party was Jenny Robb from Ohio. She runs the Ohio Cartoon Art Museum, a great cartoon art museum. And she goes, oh, I'm interviewing Tom in November. And then I was able to say, guess what? So out of 6 people at a party, 3 of us. So my question is, one, wow, how extensive?
Hire a good publicist.
I was going to say, how extensive has your book tour been, and who hasn't interviewed you?
Those are both very good questions. Yeah, I've really gone all over the place. I mean, I've really used this as a way to get out and just sort of share cartoons. It's so gratifying as a cartoonist to get out and hear laughter at your cartoons. It's something that you rarely get to experience. It's very, as you know, a very solitary endeavor. a large part of the time. So yeah, so I've been all over the place, and it's gotten really well received.
So how many cities you've done?
Oh gosh, I think this is my 22nd
Wow, are you,
city.
are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
yeah.
That's
I was able to
book
I was
tour.
able to guilt trip the publisher into paying for the travel, so because they gave me
Wow.
a small advance. So,
Oh,
but
that's
yeah, no, it's been great to get out, and yeah, Andrews McMeel's been super supportive. Yeah.
wow.
There's a lot of book clubs in the country that could use this as a funny gift to their fellow members.
Let me ask you, it's a great cover. Did you go into it knowing that was going to be the cover?
It was a decision process. Part of it was my most well-known cartoon, the Yes, the Planet Got Destroyed cartoon. We were considering using that one on the cover just because of its notoriety, but you need that second line for it to really be funny, and it wouldn't just be too long of a title. I do like long titles. Anything we started as a book club is just funny because it's like a long title. But then we went back and forth with a lot of different options, and this one sort of rose to the surface. So it was a little bit of a trial and error to come up with it. But I'm really happy that we came up with this one. It works really nicely.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah.
And so I'm really interested in process. So when you're doing a 22 city book tour, do you have sketchbooks? Do you actually work? Are you writing jokes, or are you just on like a little bit of a vacation?
I'm on a little bit of a vacation. I did have a brief stay over at the Thurber House in Columbus, Ohio. I don't know if anyone gets the chance to go to Columbus, Ohio. There's the Cartoon Art Museum, part of the Billy Ireland Cartoon Art Museum is part of Ohio State University. Fantastic place to visit. They have all the original Calvin and Hobbses. They have original art from almost any cartoonist you could name. And right in the same city is the James Thurber House. James Thurber was a very important writer, editor for The New Yorker, and also a cartoonist. And they have taken his house and turned it into sort of a historical site. His actual bed, his actual typewriter, his bathtub, it's all there. But on the third floor, they have sort of a resident artist apartment where you can come and stay for brief periods of time. So I did have a little bit of a stay there where I was working on a graphic memoir that I'm sort of trying to work on. But there is something that cartoonists for The New Yorker whisper to each other silently, which is resubmission. We resubmit jokes. So I've been resubmitting some stuff over the course of the tour. It's been just hard. I like my studio. I like my quietude. I'm not really kind of a, things occur to you in the wild and you seize upon them and sketch them down. That rarely occurs to me. I sort of think of myself more as like a rubbish collector where I'm just sort of sponging up impressions of things, and then much later on I can use them to craft together some weird scenario.
So then what is the process? Do you have certain times or days where you just sit in your studio and try to come up with ideas?
Yeah, it's like the morning time is usually the most fruitful time. I heard an interview one time with James Taylor, the musician, and he was asked, how did you learn to play the guitar? And he said, I had really boring summers as a kid, which I loved that response, because like within boredom, that's where the mind starts to play, right? Like you entertain yourself. So I really try and set aside distractions. There are so many things tugging on our attention, the phone, the computer, I have a kid and all that kind of stuff, and 2 cats that are really needy. But like you try and set aside as distractions as much as possible and like push through feeling fallow. Every week I'm convinced I have no more ideas that I can possibly come up with. But you have to push through that and let yourself then start to play just to simply entertain yourself,
And what's the inspiration? Because looking through your book, your cartoons cover everything. It's not like any, some cartoons have like specific things they go back to, but you really, from medieval stuff to cave, you cover history and different employments and stuff. So that's just, what triggers the joke?
Yeah, if I had more of like a formula for how things get produced, I'd probably be more successful. There's a lot of accident, but you do try and give yourself little prompts. And the other trick is like trying as hard as you can to not self-censor as you're pursuing an idea. Just let it go where it may. And that ultimately will lead you down really unexpected byways. So I think like the reason why there's such a wide variety of topics is because I just never know where the idea is going to lead when I embark on chasing one down. You try and leave yourself open to as many things as possible. And it also behooves you to like have a wide variety of topics. Like each cartoon within your weekly batch should probably be on another topic, so that you're throwing everything at them. You never know what's going to work. You don't know what other people are submitting. Like maybe someone else submitted a funnier Frankenstein joke last week, and so like your Frankenstein joke is not going to be bought the next week, right? But it's still a good joke. So you can like resubmit it, keep working on it. So yeah, I think it helps you just in the craft of it and also just in the business of it to have a wide variety of topics you're covering, because then you can have a more diverse like selection for the editor, essentially. Yeah.
Are there certain things you like to draw, and does your mind go there?
I usually start with cats.
Who doesn't?
I kind of see my characters as human cats. Like I like really expressionless characters. If you notice in my cartoons, like usually only the speaking character has a mouth. Everyone else just has 2 dots for eyes and like a little nose. In the development of my style, like for the 609 cartoons that got rejected up until they bought my first one, I was really playing around a lot stylistically. And I look back at that earlier stuff and I realized that I was really just heavily influenced by Gary Larson and The Far Side. I loved The Far Side growing up. So I was drawing very Far Side-esque characters. And finally, I realized that like I was never going to make a Far Side joke as good as Gary Larson made a Far Side joke. So then there was a moment where I had this epiphany where I was like, what I perceive as my mistakes are actually my style. Like the reason why I'm not really good at caricature, like drawing faces in a detailed way. So why not lean into the simplicity of the face? You know, like your mistakes are actually where your style lives. So then that sort of really liberated me to pursue my own, the captions started to rhyme more with the images. It worked harmoniously. There was more of a sort of unified voice behind them.
Yeah, well, but you were saying your characters are very deadpan, but that really works for your sense of humor because there's all this craziness going on, and they're sort of
There's a dry
there.
sense.
And I think it's also helpful because I think the reader can read their own emotion into the
Right.
Harold Gray did Little Orphan Annie and didn't give her pupils, and part of that was that they could see their own expression in Little Orphan Annie.
Exactly.
And I know a lot of times I would draw the back of their heads, so you don't draw the expression, but the reader, it's definitely a dance with the reader that they add to the to the story you're trying to tell.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that sort of expands the range of impressions that people can take from it. So it can be enjoyable for a wider variety. You're not telling people how to respond, right? The characters aren't overacting, trying to sell the joke.
Yeah.
Thinking about, but one note about inspiration. There's often the misconception that like you encounter cartoons in the world, and that rarely is the case. I don't know if it's the case for you, but like stumbling upon something that like, oh, that's a cartoon idea, and taking it, that almost never happens. No. But there was one time, the one time I've actually heard it happening is my friend Bill Highfly, who's another great cartoonist in Los Angeles, I was talking with him, and he said there was one time when he overheard a line of dialogue, took it verbatim, used it as a caption, and it got published. And he was walking around a mall one day, and he overheard someone say, "This is like something I'd get for my sister if she could take care of nice things." And he took it and used it, and it sold. But you can't make a career out of overhearing dialogue in malls,
And you can't make a career. I'm sure people have given you ideas. Have you ever been given an idea that you actually used?
No.
Yeah, that never happens.
No, it never happens. Yeah. Matt Diffie, another great cartoonist who I'm friends with, he says he doesn't take joke submissions either, and he says he has this nightmare of like being on his deathbed and the nurse comes over and says, my favorite cartoon of yours is this one, and it's the one he like didn't come up with himself. But I mean, the New Yorker used to take gag submissions by writing until the 70s. They would you could submit written gags that they would then buy and assign them to cartoonists to draw.
So, I mean, I've heard of that, but I didn't know they stopped doing it.
They stopped doing that under William Shawn in the 70s. And so there was more of an emphasis on the cartoonists had to start coming up with their own jokes. And that's why that was then the generation that came along, like George Booth and Roz Chast, who had their own voice, really, as cartoonists, and Ziegler. But they used to, a lot of Charles Adams's body of work is stuff that was assigned to him as, So there was less of a, and so by virtue of that, there was less emphasis on the painterly quality of the image and more emphasis on the voice of the cartoonist. Yeah.
So going to your cartoons about destroying the planet, did you know that was great when you did? Like, was that a good day for you when you drew that? Did you know this is knocked out of the park?
I try and. As a general rule, the ones that I submit to them where I'm like, this is a masterpiece, they're definitely going to take this one, and this one's going to put me on the map. They never buy that one. Never. It's always, But that one, That one, I was not going to submit cartoons that week. I was actually on a writing retreat with a friend. He had irresponsibly not finished the work he was supposed to finish before our writing retreat together. And so he had to do some work to tidy up some work in one afternoon. And it happened to be a Monday when I would normally submit my cartoon batch. And so I came up with like a half batch really quickly. That was among them and sent it in. And the editor got back to me right away and said, like, we really want this one. We want this one for this week's issue, which almost never happens. So you do a cartoon for them. Usually you submit the artwork and then you never know when it's going to come out. You don't know when it's going to be published. They have cartoons they bought from me 10 years ago. They haven't published yet. They keep them in their bank, they call it. But sometimes they want it for what's called a issue, the issue that week. So I had to run back home from the writing retreat, do the art. It's probably the fastest artwork I've ever done for my cartoons, and I sent it off. And so there's definitely a lesson to be learned there about not belaboring your process. I was not on social media at the time. That was published in 2012. So it wasn't until much later that friends kept mentioning to me that they saw it around, and I kind of got wind slowly that it was spreading in the culture. I try and divorce intent from impact as much as possible as an artist. You don't have any really control over the impact of your stuff. You can only put intent into it. And so, but I'm really flattered that it's had this whole life. Like I said, it doesn't really belong to me anymore. You know, I wish I had a nickel for every time it got reposted online, but you know, welcome to the social media age.
Have you ever done a cartoon that cracked yourself up? Have you ever laughed at the joke?
Oh yeah, I love my stuff. Yeah, I'm my own best reader. You have to enjoy your own company as a guy.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. You know, I had a friend who wasn't an artist, but I always used to make him draw a cartoon. You know, just draw, and he would literally tears would be coming out of his eyes, laughing at his own stuff. And it's just, to me, it's amazing that we could surprise ourselves and make ourselves laugh. Doing mutts, maybe that's happened 5 times, but does that happen 5 times? Well, but you would actually laugh at your cartoons.
Yeah, I like that.
Great.
Yeah. Usually in the like sketch process, when it comes to making the finished artwork, that's like a longer. You try and like the real trick is trying to maintain a sense of spontaneity in the finished artwork, which you do really well. But there's a tendency to be like, oh, this is going to be published. I have to do this right, you know. But oftentimes you just want to keep it loose.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely from the less is more school, but looking at some of your work. Oh my God, the details! I'm like amazed.
I do love just making stuff that you can sort of lean into, and all the little hidden Easter eggs, and like I like stuff being a little more, you know.
I was looking in the book. I was looking at the one where the guy's going to the cowboy's going to the eye doctor.
Yeah.
Am I like? Did you like study eye doctor's office? There's like so many.
Thank God for Google Images.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, there's one where the cowboy's going, like a cowboy is at the eye doctor, and you can tell it's a cowboy because there's a big cowboy hat over that, like, you know, thing that you look into when you're at the optometrist. And the optometrist is saying to him, "So how often would you say you ride off into the sunset?" It's like his eye damage.
And then you had one of a couple in a traffic jam, and I gave up counting the cars at 50. I mean,
that was one where you sell a cartoon, you pump your fist, then you think, oh God, I have to draw this thing. All the cars. But it was important to get the density of traffic, right? Like,
no, again, I'm amazed of the detail. Like, there's one with a coffee shop, and you have like 20 people in the coffee shop. Like, I'm again, less is more. If I drew a coffee shop, if there's 2 people there, that'd probably be too many.
Well, you do it every day, so there's a different metabolism to doing a daily strip. I guess we have a little more time. You know, the work will expand to fill the time available to it, so you do have to sort of like draw a deadline for yourself at some point. But I do like making things that are a little more painterly. I mean, that's the Charles Addams influence. Like I love it to where it feels like a real peephole into a world.
And speaking of influence, so you said when you were younger, it was The Far Side for you.
Far Side, so Calvin and Hobbes.
Give me your art history of when you thought you were an artist or wanted to be an artist, and what were the comics that influenced you the most?
The first thing I can really remember wanting to be was a Disney animator. Like, I'm very much a child of the 80s and 90s, all those, you know, Howard Ashman, Alan Menken, musical, Disney's Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. I would pause my VHS tape of my favorite moments and try and copy down like until the VHS tape started to play again automatically. And like, I have to find that moment again. But yeah, Calvin and Hobbes, I remember waking up every morning in eager anticipation of following the continued adventures of Calvin in the newspaper. You know, I vividly remember that last strip on the Sunday when Calvin and Hobbes go, you know, sledding off into the horizon. So definitely them. I'm really mainstream stuff, just like Disney, Calvin and Hobbes, The Far Side. that was my party trick in middle school, was that I could like draw, like that. I was shy, but also artistic and like kind of the class clown. But I have a metaphor that I try to keep in mind for like, what are the cartoons even doing in the magazine, right? Like in the New Yorker, you have this Pulitzer Prize winning journalism, some of the best writing you'll ever see anywhere. And then over in the corner are like two cats talking about like, how, what they're going to tear up next in the house. Like one of my favorite cartoons is by Mike Toohey, where there's two cats standing in front of a chair, which is just torn to shreds. And one of the cats is saying, I have a couple other projects I'm really excited about. But like, what is that doing in an article about, political corruption or some foreign war or, a really detailed profile piece? And so like the way the cartoons are in the magazine, I think of them as a note passed to a friend during class. Like it's a little elbow in the ribs, right? Like we can take moments to recognize like that fullness of our humanity, where we're supposed to be learning stuff. It's very serious subjects, but there's always a moment for a joke, right? That's why I did. But in middle school, I was that kid who like drew stuff during class. I really didn't take it seriously. And then in college, I did a cartoon for my school paper, which was weekly.
What was that about?
It was just single panels. It was single panel, broad subject stuff. A lot about college life too. I went to a school in Connecticut, we'll call it, down the way. I noticed a sticker out front that said "Beat Yale," so I took that very personally. But that was the first time when I really caught the bug of like the joy of having an audience, like walking around the campus and like seeing people encounter the cartoon in the paper, and be like, oh, this is really cool. Like you can communicate through people like psychically, like the joke's on the page and they're getting it. But I never really took it seriously as a career path until I moved back home and was trying to sort myself out in my 20s and kind of rediscovered that passion for drawing.
So when you were at Yale, what were you planning on doing?
I was studying art history with a focus in filmmaking. I went to NYU Film School right out of undergrad, and that was an expensive experiment. But ultimately, my storyboards are better than the films I made from my storyboards. Like being on set is not like where I am creatively. Like I just described the whole like loving like my own company and my little studio. So that was like an uncomfortable fit, but it was all an extension of like visual storytelling. And yeah, then I moved back home with a lot of student debt, and then the economy collapsed. And I started selling tickets in a local theater and drawing in the evenings. And then, caught wind.
Was the New Yorker your first sale, or were you selling to other magazines?
There's not a lot of other places to sell.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing stuff in the Funny Times, but they pay peanuts. They're great. They're a great place to get your sort of foothold. But yeah, it was kind of the New Yorker or bust, because they felt like they buy every week. You can trick yourself into thinking you have a career when you're selling, when you're like they're buying every week. And really, for our generation, I mean, it used to be able to take one batch of cartoons, go around to every editorial office in Manhattan, Ladies' Home Journal, Collier's, Esquire, and the New Yorker. There's just fewer and fewer places that publish cartoons. So I didn't know where else to go other than the New Yorker. Yeah, and also just like seeing cartoons given that place of importance in this like really important cultural magazine, it was sort of ennobling in a way. It was like something great to aspire to. It's like I love those cartoons so much, and like to be a part of it. It was something to sort of hone my ambition toward. Yeah.
You're historic now. My God, you're in the New Yorker.
I would have liked to crack newspaper comics, but it didn't seem like a viable path. Like
it's hard for me to encourage anybody to go in that field nowadays.
Yeah.
I feel like I caught the last, when I started Mutt's Peanut. Charles Schultz was still doing Peanuts, and Calvin and Hobbes was in the paper, and The Far Side was was towards the end. Right. Of the golden age.
Right. Because I know like Pearls Before Swine came along. I think that was one of the ones to break in.
Around the same time as Mutz.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wish, my influences being Calvin and Hobbes and The Far Side, it would have been something. I was in talks actually with United Press Syndicate before they got absorbed by Andrews McMeel to have like a single panel kind of Far Side style gag. Almost like in, Harry Bliss. Harry Bliss. Yeah, Bliss. It was going to be like Bliss, where it's like the panel with recurring characters, but identifiable characters, but not named characters, like the sort of Far Side or Bliss. But they ended up going under. Like so, it was there were some glimmers of possibility in that, but ultimately, the New Yorker is kind of you at some point you have to push on the open door, and like the New Yorker was the open door.
Yeah. But then you did do a a syndicated strip on the web, right?
For the web, yeah, for 3 years, I sunsetted it because I got too busy with other things. But I did do a strip for the Go Comics website, which was sort of more in your wheelhouse with the recurring characters, and I used it as a chance to branch out artistically using a different kind of nib, using a nib pen for the first time, and doing all that kind of stuff. That was called Home Free. It was about a family whose house renovation displaces them, so they end up having to camp out in their backyard as their house is like in ruins. And for the entire life of the strip, whenever I revive it and however long it goes, like the remodel will never be finished. They'll never move back into their house.
So to me, that's a really interesting idea for a strip. How'd you come up with that idea? And did you have others, or was that the one that hit?
That was the one that hit. I love the home. I loved there was this idea of like the precarity that a family is under. I remember growing up in like an active construction site because my dad would always embark on these. He would never hire a contractor, and he would always try to embark on these renovation projects by himself that lasted for years. And so like I just remember that feeling, how funny that was to like be in like an active construction site as a kid. And so like sort of taking that to an exaggerated degree. And also I wanted to use it as a way for the family to kind of, for especially the young child who ends up being the protagonist of the strip, to kind of be, he really has this funny thing where he loves being outside the home and camping, and he sort of like embraces his like inner wild child. So he becomes kind of a nature boy and like goes out. So like creating the context for that felt nice. I'm a naturalist like you, like I'm an environmentalist, and I do cartoons for Yale Climate Connections and for the Center for Biological Diversity. So I try and have, environmentalism and sort of merge with my art whenever possible.
But the kid in the strip talked to the animals, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Should we open it up for Q&A?
Yep.
If anyone has questions. I promise to try and answer them and not the easier ones that I wish you'd asked.
That's right.
Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I'm going to bring the microphone.
You're going to get a microphone.
Coming, yeah. Thank you.
I'm just curious, when you submit a joke to the New Yorker and then they finally publish it, did they let you know?
They do not let us know. No, yeah, we all every midnight on Sunday, the next issue of the New Yorker goes live on their app, and so like every cartoonist is like waiting up to see if they got a cartoon that week. I think that they don't let us know because it's just a sort of organizational hazard for them, and also they reserve the right to change things up until the very end. I mean, because they do it's very intentionally that the cartoons not feel like they're commenting on the articles that they're embedded in any way. So things might change up until the last minute based on what they publish, and so they don't want to get your hopes up. Even like with the cover, I had, sort of an NDA agreement with them where I couldn't tell anyone that I was working on a cover or had the cover because they reserved the right to change it up until the last minute. Like maybe that Thanksgiving, we would have embarked on some other forever war, and like it might not have seemed appropriate to have a Groucho Marx joke. There's a great cover artist, Barry Blitt, who actually won the Pulitzer Prize 2 years ago for his New Yorker covers, which are very sort of editorial cartoons. He does anything you might see that has like, Trump or his cabinet being ridiculous, like that's probably a Barry Blitt cartoon. So they let their covers be editorial, but the cartoons on the inside really are not supposed to be political, which is almost why that Yes, the Planet Got Destroyed cartoon was kind of miraculous, because that's about as political as they'll get. Because really, they want to let the journalism do the journalism. Yeah.
I had no idea. So you don't know the cartoon's going to be printed until it's actually printed.
You don't know. Wow. Yeah, you don't know. It's a little bit frustrating, but but it's also kind of surprising and flattering.
Yeah, a little fun too.
I think the record for duration of time between delivering the finished artwork and having the cartoon published is like 13 years. Wow. So it also is to your benefit to make cartoons that are kind of timeless in that way, because they have to be kind of appropriate at any given time.
I have a question for you. Thank you so much. This was fascinating. You may not want to answer it, but how much you get paid?
When I'm asked about that, I always I have a question back at you. How many copies of the book did you buy? Yeah, I mean, we don't, it's not much. I mean, it's about, roughly $1,000 a cartoon. There are different pay scales. You start out at a lower rate work your way up. It used to be different. I talk. Michael Maslin is a cartoonist who I'm pretty good friends with, who's sort of a different generation. In his generation, you used to get a guaranteed annual amount, and then anything you sold that you would like pay off with your sales. But then anything you sold above that, you get additional money, and they also got benefits through the magazine. In the generation before him, you used to even get like stock in the company as part of your arrangement. Now we're just freelancers who are paid on a per cartoon basis. So things have gotten worse for artists. It is just harder to make it. So the New Yorker is the most prestigious thing that I do. It's actually just a fraction of my work as a freelancer. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for coming. So if you submit a cartoon to them and they buy it, but it takes years for them to decide or whether to publish it or not, at some point, can you sell it to somebody else, or is it once they buy it, it's theirs? Or
it's theirs. Yeah, they can, and they sometimes will. It's a little bit of a harsh term, but it's called killing the cartoon. They will let you know the cartoon has been killed. But even if they do kill a cartoon and decide not to publish it, you can't sell it anywhere else. They own the rights. But they have first publication rights, sort of in perpetuity, and they also have anthology rights that they will give you an honorarium, but they have the right to sort of anthologize your cartoons in collections and stuff. But we own the copyrights to our cartoons, which is still a really nice arrangement with the company. So I don't have to get their permission to put out my own collection of my work, which is nice. But yeah, they have the right to it. But they do pay you when you deliver the finished artwork. So you do get paid, and then they just sort of sit on it. They try not to do that too much. Just because they want to encourage artists to keep submitting, and it can be kind of frustrating if you don't get your stuff published. But yeah, but they don't let you know.
I'm going to
Yes.
pitch you.
Hi.
I'm going to pitch you.
Oh, you're going to pitch me? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to take the idea, but you're welcome to. You're welcome to try.
Have you done anything about grief?
Grief. I do have, in this collection, I do have a possum cartoon where there's a possum climbing up a tree and talking to another possum on a branch, and they're saying, "Why weren't you playing bereaved while I was playing dead?"
Great joke.
That's kind of as close to grew up, but I do deal with that. Yeah, I do. Death is always a ripe subject for humor. I mean, that's kind of the purpose of humor, right? Is for us to dull the edge of the Grim Reaper's scythe, a little bit. I've never had a Grim Reaper cartoon bought by them, which really frustrates me. I keep trying to submit ones. Like, there are these tropes that you try and hit as an artist, which, they're kind of crutches, but it's also gratifying to have your own twist on this classic theme. So I've done a lot of desert island jokes. I've done some wise men on the mountaintop jokes, psychiatrist couch jokes, of course. I've never done a Grim Reaper joke though for them. I'm still trying to crack that.
Thank you so much. I travel sometimes, and I'd like to know where you recommend are the best cartoon museums outside of Columbus. Do you know any cartoon museums in different parts of the country, or in Canada, or in Europe?
That is a great question. Cartoon museums. There's the Charles Schulz Museum in Santa Rosa, California, which is really worth visiting. It's obviously just a shrine to Peanuts, but if you're interested in that, it's really just astonishing the breadth and reach that strip still continues to have. So that's a good one to visit. There's the Cartoon Art Museum in San Francisco, which I actually have an exhibit up there now. I'm part of an exhibit called The West Coaster, West Coast Contributors to the New Yorker. So that's a place to stop by. Really, the Billy Ireland is a shrine. You should definitely check that one out if you're in Columbus, Ohio. Just in terms of really cool, there's if you're in Seattle, the Fantagraphics bookstore. Fantagraphics is a great comic publisher. They're not a museum, but they're a comic publisher. Their stuff is astonishing. I'm trying to think what else.
In New York, there's the Society of Illustrators, and right now there's an Edward Gorey show. It's not always cartoons, but they do have cartoonist shows there. So Society of Illustrators in New York.
And through February, the main branch of the New York Public Library has up their 100 Years of New Yorker exhibit right now, which does include cartoons as well. But they have the original manuscript of Great Day for a Banana Fish, J.D. Salinger's first short story and stuff like that. So that's worth checking out too, for sure. That's a great question. It makes me realize I need to get out to more cartoon museums.
Two questions. One is, I sort of don't want the answer to.
Those are my favorite kind of questions.
Well, I hadn't thought of this before, but we read religiously the New Yorker every week, and especially the cartoons. But I take screenshots sometimes, and I sent the book club one to all my friends. we always send your cat cartoons to our daughter who has a cat, and it's just a thing between us, you know. Is that a copyright infringement if I just do it to Aunt Family?
Confessing to a crime right now?
One more thing to feel guilty about, right?
I mean, I think that's fine as long as you're not like printing it on T-shirts and selling the T-shirts for yourself and that kind of thing. But yeah.
Okay. And the other thing is, you know, since you mentioned gory, like I saw the Broadway show Dracula with Gory doing all the setting, and I think it would make a great Broadway show to have different cartoonists do sketches, live sketches of some of their cartoons. Just putting it
That's
out
a cool
there.
idea. That's a cool idea. You know, like they used to have this thing. Do you ever watch the Late Show with Seth Meyers? He used to do this. I don't think they do it anymore, but they did like live reenactments of New Yorker cartoons, where they would actually they would blow up your artwork to like, you know, the size of a stage set, and they would have the characters in costume, and the whole thing would be posed, and then they would just deliver the one line, and then that would be it. But it was almost like a weird experimental theater form of humor, where the whole humor was how much production effort they put into like delivering one line. So I mean, that could be interesting to do, expand into a Broadway show. Who knows? Mutts on Broadway.
I actually did a children's musical with the Mutts characters, and I found that theater and comic strips are very close. You know, it's like limited sets and most dialogue driven. Comic strips and movies don't work because they want big action, but you know, the quietness and the intimacy of comics really work well on the stage. So I think that's a great idea.
That's a great idea, yeah. That's almost one thing that I wished Fun Home had leaned a little bit more into. I mean, it's a fantastic, obviously, graphic novel, legendary graphic novel, and they translated it into a Broadway musical, but it didn't feel like the graphic novel, you know? There's a version of that.
But that actually I felt worked.
Yeah,
well.
no, it's a fantastic musical, yeah. Anyway, not to critique Alison Bechdel, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm working on a memoir right now, too, a graphic memoir, which I hope will come out at some point. But who knows? Maybe if you know any Broadway producers, I'll send you the manuscript.
So this has been just a fascinating conversation. And I think, Patrick, maybe we should start the Mutts Museum here in Princeton. Get that going as another museum stop, right? There's certainly enough Mutts materials that I think we could, you know, right next to the Einstein Museum if it ever gets going.
The highs and lows.
I want to thank you both for being here, Tom. Thank you for traveling all the way from the West Coast to come to us here in Princeton and share your cartoons. And Patrick, as always, it's a joy to have you here in our library, as you've been here so often. Patrick is a big supporter of both Labyrinth books and the library. We're so fortunate to have him here in town to interact on all things cartoons and more. And this has just been a delightful way to end our brunch season. This week has actually been our week of laughs. Earlier this week, we had the Princeton graduate improv group here, and about 70 people doing improv around books. And it was a really fun night. And I think the month of December, we all need to end the year laughing and going into the new year full of joy. And this has brought us all so much joy. And so thank you again to our sponsors for making this happen, the Credit Union and the Labyrinth Books. And we'll see you all next year at more fabulous author events and brunches and various things. If you're around this afternoon at 3 o'clock, we're celebrating Jane Austen's birthday with an author talk with Devani Lozer from Arizona, talking about the untamed and wild Jane. So, yeah, lots going on. And have a great day, everybody.
Thank you all very much.